right now. The United States differs from England because we didn't have far-flung empires where we were colonial masters. Our colonialism is much more insidious, and it's more hidden around basically devaluing the dollar to get people to do things for us. That's ending. The dollar is going straight up now. So we're not going to feel so compelled to do things around the world that we did in the past. We can create our own food, we can create our own energy, and we can reindustrialize. So you're going to see probably a collapse of the global order.
And good afternoon, everyone. David Dubine here with Bob Kudla, TradeLikeAGenius.com. Everywhere you look across the planet, you can see signals marching forward that something's not exactly going to stay the way it was for the last 70 years in terms of the economy, markets, commodities. So where do we go from here through possibly the month of shock of October? Because, through history, October is the month just generally that has the most surprises in it. Moving forward, today's market drop. What do we talk about with moving over to either indices, shorting them, commodities, which look like it's going to head north because a lot of things in Europe, as I was looking today, the nitrogen facilities are shutting down. And a lot of ammonia is not being produced along with the different smelters that have shut. So to give a wider scape view here, we're going to talk to Bob, as always, the monthly, and the promo code FALL for 50% off all non-bundled items as we talk. I'm going to leave it right there. Bob, what are you seeing? Because I'm looking around and every indicator and people I have on different continents throwing me information and, talking about what's happening. Never seen anything like this ever. It's such a unique situation right now.
Yeah, you're right. So let's go macro to micro on this. So we're ending a fiat regime. Okay, that could be a 20-hour conversation of itself. I'm not going to get into that. Number one. Number two, we're ending a geopolitical regime as well. So the flat Earth society, and I don't mean the Earth being flat. I mean trade connections, global economic integration is ending. And the other regime that we're ending the financialization regime, and it's going back to a hard asset regime. And all these things are tying together, and Russia is kind of like a poster child for all this stuff. And so you have a situation now where Russia's like, and I'm using Russia, and forget what Russia be moral or amoral. Russia is just an object lesson for us here, okay? Because the United States pushes its advantages all the time too. Is that Russia sits there and says, okay, we've been dismissed on the world stage. We've been used as a colonial kind of power here, giving our resources away on the cheap by countries that have used their financial chicanery to be able to buy stuff on the cheap. We're sensitive to that because of what they do all the time in the gold and silver markets in terms of rehypothecation. And so now people that actually own hard assets are like, we're done giving these away on the cheap. Okay. And so now Russia's pulling back, okay, and the Ukraine war was just an excuse for this stuff. They needed a catalyst, and then the West went ahead and they stuck their head in the noose and dropped sanctions in on them, thinking that they could probably coerce Russia out of their situation, and they made a bad situation worse. And then I don't have to tell anybody here that the ESG climate change portion of the show is an utter disaster for the left, and now it's literally going to kill millions of people. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that. The fall's coming in really cold already. And, we're already getting snow out here in California. We got snow in Colorado Springs. We're getting snow in the Northeast. You're getting, Finland had the coldest start of Finland of the year. Russia, same. And I don't want to get into any of that too, but that's just another symptom. And then you have a situation now where everybody's been kind of complacent for a very long time. And, we have, I would think probably around the world, we've had probably the most feckless set of leaders that we could ever create. right? They're all weak. They're all pedantic. They're all narrative drivers. There's nobody there that is willing to tell the truth and be strong. But all these things are now setting up for a problem. You talked about Europe with the fertilizer. They're gone. They have to shut all their fertilizer plants down. They don't have any fertilizer. So it's they either got to get it from us or you got to get it from Russia. And I think between Russia and North America is probably most of the, this better than I do, is probably most of the production of the potash and phosphorus that we need around the world. And the nitrogen is really a function of natural gas. And, between us and the Middle East, we're the only ones able to really produce it cheaply. And so that's going to affect food production. I talked about that last time we talked. 2023 is not the problem for food. 2024 is going to be the problem for food because they're not going to be able to get it into the ground. And with the stock market, everybody talks about the October surprise, but actually the weakest part of the stock market is basically from the 15th of September to the 15th of October. And it centers around September 30th. We'll probably see a low hit for the year in September 30th, but that low could be pretty damn low. And then usually the fourth quarter, it lifts back up. Powell, everybody thinks he's fighting inflation. He's not fighting inflation. He's fighting a newer world order that's emerging out of Asia in terms of trying to create a competing currency system. And so they're going to keep the dollar really strong. With America, and I'm just rambling on here, there's so many threads we could pull. The United States actually is in a no-lose situation in this situation. So they have, we basically we're deindustrializing Europe right now. Well, those factories are coming to the US. Okay, they're not going to China. We now have Europe dependent on us for energy, okay, because we're the most reliable partner to them. And we're disconnecting from China. So the United States is kind of looking like Great Britain did, around World War I to the Great Depression, is that they started wiring in their empire. Now, the United States differs from England because we didn't have far-flung empires where we were colonial masters. Our colonialism is much more, insidious, and it's more hidden around basically devaluing the dollar to get people to do things for us. That's ending. The dollar is going straight up now. So we're not going to feel so compelled to do things around the world that we did in the past. We can create our own food, we can create our own energy, and we can reindustrialize. So, so you're going to see probably a collapse of the global order in the sense that the United States is going to go what I call Five Eyes in Mexico, Israel, and then India has to make a decision. And then you're going to have Europe sitting out there, with the thumb in the pie, right? And they're going to be competing against Russia and China, which are both pretty weak in different ways. China is very dependent on the United States, and Russia is very dependent on technology to keep their commodity industries running. And the Chinese steal the U.S. technology, so they'll fall a few steps behind in the world. So, yeah, I mean, you and I could probably talk till probably Sunday or Monday on all these opportunities. And these are bad things, but they're opportunities if you're positioned right. And, we feel that we've understood this, and I'm talking to you, collective you and me, we've understood this for a long time. And we're positioned in food, we're positioned in energy, we're positioned in precious metals, we're positioned in uranium. And then, fertilizer is going to get us next lift again. It's starting to percolate. And stay away from the financial assets, which are just grotesquely overvalued. And you're going to do fine. You may not like the economy, but the possessions and your assets you own are going to be fine too. If you're in real estate, probably too late to get out easily now. Powell even said today that he wants to have a correction in real estate. So that's one of the things they're trying to do. They're trying to force a break in some of these asset mindsets so that they can move people into buying government bonds again to create a balance and also to support the U.S. government spending, which is problematic in and of itself. So there you go. I'm the one that did the long lead today, Dave. I'll leave it to you now.
Reversing roles there, Bob. Yeah, I'm wondering, what they're going to offer on interest rate for those long-term bonds compared to the hyperinflationary event, or the just erosion based on raising of rates and the inflation we're seeing. I mean, what are they going to offer? 6,000% for your bond or something? 200%, even if 50%, it's going to struggle to keep up over a couple of years, especially if it's a 10-year or 30-year bond like that. And
Well, ironically, if
go
I
ahead.
can interrupt you, was the 10-year. I own 20-year bonds through an ETF. The yields fell today. So, we're getting to a point where that may flip over when we get back to recession. But you're right, though. The way they've been pushing this thing, if the government can't get a hold of its spending, we're going to just be in this loop where rates go up, spending goes up, and then the only people that are going to be able to borrow money is going to be the government.
Or tax the citizens. Either way, back to serfdom. Get back in the barn with the straw and the animals to keep warm in the evenings. Because, burning wood in Europe, I saw they're going to put this emergency proclamation out to distribute wood to the people in Europe so they don't freeze to death in their homes. That is the most insane thing I have heard in months, plural. And, this whole thing, where's Greta when we need her? She just disappeared into the woodwork. No pun intended. No pun intended. But how much of our own energy are we going to sell off to Europe? The rig count right now is about 100 rigs in America drilling and working actively on natural gas, like 100 rigs for the entire country. Department of Labor Statistics put that one out. That's crazy too. 100 rigs. That's way below anything even in the mid 1980s. Like, where's our energy going to go? How are we going to can we, it's good. Like, you're right. That spiral is going to continue.
Basically, oil production is flatlined here. Gas production is raising a little bit, but we're increasingly exporting to, we're the world's #1 exporter of liquefied natural gas now in the world, even higher than the Middle East. It's causing pain in the Northeast because they refuse to connect to the national natural gas grid because of ESG. And now they're getting their heads handed to them because they have to pay premium. They got to pay world rates now for natural gas versus paying US rates for natural gas. If they would have just completed that pipeline through Pennsylvania and north western New York. Now, the people are going to pay for the folly of the governor of New York, okay? And now they're begging the Biden administration to curtail exports of natural gas so that they can get cheaper natural gas liquefied into their terminals on the East Coast. So it's already causing issues here. And so, also, uranium, we're still the largest actually producer of nuclear power in the world, believe it or not, but that'll end soon because China is going to overwhelm us soon enough. But that's going to also get a renaissance too, because I think people, after they get through this next 12 months, I think they're going to swear off the Green New Deal for the rest of our lives. I think people are seeing what an absolute farce this is. You and I have been screaming about this for a decade, and it needed to. I have a philosophy in life: things don't matter to people till they matter to people, and now they matter to people. And people are gonna reject this, and they're going to reject the leaders. Look at Sweden. Sweden went left to hard right in one election. They've never had a hard right government ever, in the modern era. And they swept them out. Immigration, crime, energy, economic policy, all that's going to sweep the world. And so, but energy is a problem for us for the next 12 months. We're going to, according to my sources, and I have customers that trade the energy, is that once this SPR thing is done next month, is that you're going to see energy prices just creep right back up again to 110 in 2023 average to 135 in 2024 average. And, that's just going to keep Powell jumping through hoops here to try to, fix the supply problem with demand destruction.
Yeah, because you hit it on the head. I'll take anything as a best bad choice other than the choice we have right now. So when they swung all the way over, seeing so many problems inbound, what is this going to bring us to if we're going to smash some markets to bring in a central bank digital currency? Because now you see India just today has unveiled theirs as well. So what is this pain point where it's getting so bad, it's seemingly on purpose, that it's trying to create the same exact effect you just referenced? It's so bad over there that everybody votes or moves to make it go over this direction here, because there's no other choice. It got so bad, you couldn't exist there, literally. And it seems like we're being driven into corner after corner after corner in all markets here.
Yeah, we're in a different situation in the United States than in India. Once a party's in power in a parliamentary system, they can drive the agenda. The United States, we have minority rights, even though people sometimes don't like them or agree that they're not minority enough. And I'm talking about even Republicans being in the minority now. The digital currency would probably cause a civil war in the United States. Literally. It's one thing to tell these people, oh, you can't do that. It's another thing to tell 150 million people you can't do things at one time. And so I think we're gonna have to go through another cycle before they get that thing locked and loaded, because most people say, oh, I'm not bothered by the censorship machine, right? But they're misunderstanding the kids of these days. The kids today do not like any government authority whatsoever. And I own one of these kids, and they're they're not Republican and they're not Democrat and they're not libertarian. They're leave me alones. I mean, literally, leave me alone. And you do what you have to do to provide the services for me, but you leave me alone. You don't tell me what I can buy, where I can go, what I can do, what drugs I take, who I have sex with, all that stuff. The left hates the part about the one thing and the right hates the part about the other thing, but those are who those kids are. They've totally lost faith in institutions. And if you're going to have a central bank kind of lean on those people hard, I think it's going to become a problem for them. So I think we're going to have to go through a cycle. We're not going to be the bleeding edge of the central bank digital currency, unless some sort of world conflagration comes into play. And maybe that's the plan.
Yeah, because losing faith. See, that's what upholds currencies, is the faith. So I've been given word that, the record cold that's about to sweep through Europe, not only at the end of this month, and they've already set so many records, snowfall and cold, but through the entire winter. And it's going to have to be explained away. So they're going to use global warming to explain the record cold. But in turn, that's going to flip a lot of people with what you're talking about, the green agendas here, that are already becoming faithless about that. But then, eventually there's going to be this reconciliation with people saying, you fed us this thing, it's going to get warmer. Now you're trying to say the record cold's based on the same things that were causing supposedly the record heat. But see, that's what the underpinning current is: faith in system, faith in currency, faith in AGW. They all have that same current. And once that rug gets pulled out from all three of those things, then where does it really leave our world? Where faith in anything that was the bedrock of what you believed in is now not anymore. It's quicksand. You're sinking into it. This is happening everywhere. And this is the most interesting thing to see how society is trying to adjust to it and how people's minds are trying to adjust. But in a wider market space, like, how do people adjust to that non-confidence any longer? They lost, it's gone. Humpty Dumpty can't be put back together again.
Yeah, I mean, look, I tell people you can only do what you can control. So, your best situation is to be able to do most of your e-commerce or commerce as locally as you can, know who you're buying and selling to and from. And then you need to, basically on the debt side, the faster we close all our debts off, the more we screw up the Federal Reserve, right? So, they live on debt, get out of debt. And number three is, you have to learn how to become a little bit more independent in every way. I mean, you got to learn how to fix stuff. You got to learn how to grow stuff. You're going to have to inconvenience yourself a little bit to give yourself a little bit more opportunity for freedom. And so those are things I tell people. And then, on the stock side, look, there's always going to be a stock market until they shut the whole thing down. And there's plenty of opportunities right now. We had a fantastic day today in the market with the market crashing. We knew this was coming. Our algorithms were telling us it was coming. Our probabilities told us the market was going to do this. And the lead up to this is great. And this is going to continue probably to the end of September. And from there, then we'll have to look to see if there's going to be some sort of price pivot in the market going into the fourth quarter, because probabilities tell us that what indeed happens. But we'll have to wait and see when we get to that point. But at some point they're gonna have to tap the gas instead of tapping the brake here, or they can roll this thing right off a cliff. And that's the last thing they want to do. They want to control this descent. So they're going to kind of be, hitting the choke and hitting the gas and hitting the brake as they try to work this thing down. But You got to get out of the stuff that is fun. It's nice to have stuff, and you want to own the stuff that you have to have, and you're going to be just fine.
All right, Bob, that's great advice. I learned a lot talking to you today. I'll try to, formulate a few things moving forward, as well as dripping my information in on that. So appreciate your time, Bob Kudla, tradelikeagenius.com. Remember that promo code FALL for 50% off all non-bundled items. And yeah, these next few days, because the one you had talked about through the 15th of October. Interesting, the Vatican says all funds need to be pulled back to the Vatican by the 30th, which fits right in that space there. It's going to be an interesting time by the time we talk next month there, Bob. Any closing ideas for everybody listening?
Yeah, I mean, own things that people have to have, sell things that people need. I mean, don't need, and you're going to be mostly on the right side of the trade. And it's going to be wild for the next until we get through the next election cycle in 2024. So be prepared for it. Don't fret. We're gonna come out of this thing okay.